Guys, how are you this morning? Thank you for coming. My name's George Kirkham. I'm an international truck dealer in Lethbridge, Alberta. Been around international trucks all my life. My dad was a zone manager for International for 39 and a half years. I've been selling them for 48, been a dealer for 40 years. So, and it's International Motors is the new company name. Be re-identified last year. And lots of changes with Volkswagen ownership and things for the better. So it's all good stuff. Today we have with us Tom Clark, which is the International Motors corporate historian. He's trying to retire, but they won't let him retire yet. I don't know anybody that works as hard as he does to preserve international truck history. He needs a little help every now and again, so him and I got to be pretty good pals about 14 years ago. And I said, I'll help you. You just throw me the odd bone every now and again. Throw me the odd picture, the odd something that you can show me and share with me. And every now and again I get something back. But Shelby and I have worked tirelessly some days to keep him informed with pictures and articles, ads, whatever. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we've done for him. And he does some great presentations. There's, like I say, corporate history. I mean, he knows it upside down, backside, whatever. So we've tried to teach him which end of a truck would hurt him, so which he's done very well. Learned that very well over the last 14 years, and it's just been, he's taught us a whole bunch of stuff. So it was always a two-way street. So what else do I need to say about you?
Nothing.
No?
Thank you, George. My name's Tom Clark.
Do you want to do this?
I think I've got it here.
Okay,
I spent 40 years as a graphic designer in Chicago, working for ad agencies, design firms. In 2005, I was working for Navistar's agency, and I was asked to design a history book for the company. What, Patty? Louder? I spent 2 years designing this book, Milestones. I got hooked on the history. I didn't write it, I didn't research it, I did the layouts, but I worked with collectors. I worked with our archives here in Madison, and I just was fascinated. After the book was published in 2007, it became my hobby to study this history. At night, my wife was doing genealogy, and I was researching this company. In 2011, we were planning a museum, and I was hired to be the content expert. I really wasn't that much of an expert. I relied on George. I met George, and he's been my biggest helper. I know lots of experts. I'm like a hub. People come to me with questions, and I go out to the guy that knows the most about engines. Or I go out to the guy that knows the most about tractors. George knows more about international trucks than anybody on the planet, as far as I can tell. I'm serious. Don't
oversell me, Tommy.
No.
It's an awful slippery slope.
It's absolutely. Right. And I can write George an email at 7:30 at night, and at 7:30 in the morning I have a reply with answers, and then more information than I didn't even know I needed. He'll send me 30 photos the next day. He has a photo collection. We have our archives here in Madison, and we have 300,000 photos or something. George must have close to that. George has more photos than they do sometimes, I think.
I got more than you do downtown Chicago. There's no doubt about that. But that's about it.
So anyway, enough about this. But I've been at the company 14 years. I worked on the rebranding. We have two people coming from Chicago or from Lisle today that aren't here yet.
They're parked on the Beltline.
Yes, I was there yesterday, yes. It was a very interesting project over 2.5 years to rebrand and go back to the International name. I mean, nobody knew who Navistar was. I could explain it one week to somebody, and next week they'd say, who again is Navistar? And we're in a building in Lisle with a big satellite dish on the top of the building, because the building used to be owned by somebody in the satellite business or something. It made no sense to people. So now at least when I say it's the old International Harvester Company, somebody knows who I'm talking about. Let's see, I have a lot of people to thank. George and Shelby, who are here. A lot of these people help me all the time. 2 people in the lower left there from the company. I work for Chris. I used to work a lot with Heather. Those are 3 people in the upper right at the archives here in Madison. We support them. Our archives have been here since the 1950s. And here's what I'm trying to do today. An overview of the company. I mean, there's thousands of models. We can't talk about them all, but I have some funny did you knows or fun facts, some oddball things, and an amazing collection of photos. So if I didn't speak today, and I was coughing last week a lot, thought maybe I wouldn't speak today, would just flip through the slides. If you only look at the photos, you'll learn a lot about the company history. We have our archives here in Madison because when Cyrus McCormick, the founder, the guy who invented the Reaper, died, his brother, who he fired from the company, Leander there on the right, was the plant manager of the Reaper plant for years, and Cyrus fired him because he couldn't keep up, built a new plant after the Great Chicago Fire, and Leander couldn't keep up with the demand. So Cyrus brought in somebody from the Colt Firearms Company to run the plant, and it changed everything. But Leander's always held a grudge. So when Cyrus died, Leander said, it really wasn't my brother that invented the Reaper. It was our father, Robert. And so Anita over there on the left decided, no, that's not true. She collected all the papers and eventually gave them to the Historical Society here in Madison. It's an amazing operation. It's over there on the left with 12 million documents, 350,000 photos, 300 films. When we moved some of our material out of Chicago, it took 14 semi-trailer trucks full of papers and photos. So it's
a lot.
It's a lot. It's an amazing. George has just spent a couple days over there working. There's a new building here in Madison where we're starting to move our material to. And it is just absolutely state of the art. They know how to preserve old stuff. They have, for example, we have old films, old 16 millimeter films from the 30s, and they're brittle. But they keep them at like 32 degrees. And if I want to get one out to have it digitized, it goes from a 32 degrees room to a 55 degree room for 2 or 3 days. Then it comes out into the 70 degree temperature. It's brilliant state-of-the-art stuff. I'm one in a long line of historians dating back to 1894. I'm retired, right? Retired last June, and I'm now working 10 hours a week. I don't know. I love this job, but I really do need to retire, and I don't know when that's going to happen. I would like to train somebody, but it hasn't happened yet. I'm trying not to give you the whole history of the company, but the McCormick era lasted from 1831 to 1902. Then we became International Harvester, then Navistar, and recently we became International Volkswagen. The Traton group of Volkswagen acquired us in 2021, and it's really helped us grow and do remarkable new things, all kinds of new technologies we couldn't afford before. I mean, bringing a new diesel engine online is a multi-billion-dollar operation, and now we can afford to do that stuff.
Absolutely selling the best trucks I've sold in ever. In 48 years in the business, we are selling stuff today that is so much more refined that it's a lot of, the truck business is a lot of fun again from what it was 15 years ago, say.
So here's a little bit, I'm going to get to trucks in a minute. The International Harvester formed in 1902 with a merger of 5 reaper companies. The biggest ones were McCormick and Deering. As soon as they merged that company held an 85% market share in the farm business. So it led to a antitrust lawsuit at some point. Also, by 1920, we were the 5th largest company in the United States. So this was a huge operation at one point. These are the people that put the deal together. John D. Rockefeller, on the left, was a family friend because his daughter married Harold McCormick, Cyrus's second son. So Rockefeller said, I'll help you put this together. You got to meet my friend J.P. Morgan. You know Chase Bank today, but that's J.P. Morgan's company. To put the deal together, he hired a guy named George Perkins. And Perkins, he realized that 3 of the 5 companies had holdings overseas, and so he named us International. So if you're wondering where that name come from, it's that guy. And the guy on the right, Clarence Funk, the gangster-looking guy, he was hired to keep the McCormicks and the Deerings apart because they fought tooth and nail. They could not stand to be in the same room together. Eventually, John D. Rockefeller loaned the McCormicks $5 million, and they bought out the Deerings, and it was their company then. This is that second plant in Chicago after the Great Chicago Fire. I told this story already, but the guy that came from the Colt Firearms Company, Lewis Wilkinson, brought the idea of standardized interchangeable parts. Before he came in, it was like one big blacksmith shop. I mean, people were making things by hand, one by one by one, and that didn't work. So he transitioned the company to mass production. This is what the company plant looked like in 1900. Everything ran off one large steam engine with a belt and pulley system. So, OSHA wouldn't be very happy with the way things went. But Cyrus invented the deferred payment plan, the first anywhere where you could put money down in June and get a reaper. And then after your crops were in the fall, you'd pay off your debt and own the machine. So he invented what we know today as credit cards or, payment plans. He also created the first product guarantee. So when his reapers failed, he'd send out replacement parts immediately. His son made the first commercial film, or had it made in Chicago at S&A Studios. It was a silent film in 1911. It was a silly story about a guy going back to the old farm and meeting his old girlfriend, but it was, my friend here in the archive says, it was what we would think of as a product placement film. I mean, every time you turned around, there was another McCormick product, another International product. The early truck in there, we have footage of one of our very early tractors. It's amazing. So skipping ahead, because before the interstate highway system, you needed to get to a dealer, and we were king of dealerships since ever, but we had more than 9,521 dealers because farmers would just take their tractor into town. Obviously, we can't do that today. Today, we still have the largest truck dealership network in the United States with 1,000 dealerships. And Cyrus invented the dealership idea. The franchise dealership, he was the first guy to create a franchise dealership network, and it spread across the world. So now we get the trucks finally. In 1904, this engineer, Ed Johnston, created the first gasoline engine for the company. He was just a brilliant guy. After he got started, he went to Cyrus Jr., who was running the company, and said, I want credit for my patents. And Jr. said no. Ed Johnston left, went out to Western Illinois, worked for a small plant making farm implements. Junior just didn't know what to do with himself, so he would send him telegrams like once a week saying, you sure you don't want to come back? We've got a spot here for you. He wouldn't come back. He took the train out to Sterling, Illinois, met with the guy. The guy said, Johnston said, no, I'm happy here. Cyrus Jr. bought the company the guy was working for. He came back, he stayed for about another 40 years, retired with 172 patents or something. But he was our genius engineer. So he, in the lower left there, is his first prototype buggy, motorized buggy. It doesn't even have a steering wheel. You can see it has a tiller. He rode it to work every day for about 2 years and finally convinced Cyrus Jr. to start making motorized buggies. The buggy quickly became a wagon. Farmers said, well, hell, I can take the back seat out and I'll have myself a little truck. We first started to sell this motorized buggy as a luxury item. And we sold it to wealthy farmers. And they thought it was great, but the farmers would, again, take out that back seat, take off the canvas roof and make it into a truck. But they were beautiful automobiles. George, is that yours?
That's mine on the top right-hand side.
Yeah, they're left-hand drive.
Water-cooled, that one's water-cooled.
Yeah, but the earliest ones were air-cooled, I think.
Yeah, you could have, at that time you could get it either way.
Yeah.
2 speeds forward, about 18 miles an hour.
I've ridden in one, and it's pretty powerful. A guy went up over a curb with 4 guys in it, and I was the lightest weight of the 4 guys, and it was powerful. So, we sold it first to our farmer customers because we were selling them tractors and farm equipment forever. They liked it. It quickly moved into the city to become a delivery truck. I've seen a number of these. They're beautiful machines. And one of my favorite things, George has others, but my favorite things is all the photos of overloaded trucks. There was no regulations. People just strap on whatever they could. That photo's cut off at the top there, but I've got photos from Australia of a guy. It looked like a logging truck, except he had a tree. He had, a tree with a circumference of, I don't know what, 25 feet or something. It was just a monstrous tree a guy was hauling. These trucks did everything. They started to haul. Then they started to become little buses. This is an early idea of a tractor trailer. This is somebody who took one of our trucks and took a wagon and hooked it together themselves. And then we were in the automobile business, George, right? I mean,
yeah.
that I've seen that one in the upper left in person. I think George Mitchell.
Model J on the top up there, and then these bottom. Well, they actually had a 4-cylinder, inline 4-cylinder. This is 1910. Little roadster, very sophisticated for International and quite a bit different than the other vehicles they were building at the time. Which George Mitchell does have one of those. Has a roadster as well.
He does. This is the auto wagon or auto buggy below. The engine sat below the driver's seat. It was air cooled. You can see the fins on the engine there, like my old Volkswagen Beetle. And it was chain driven. Chains powered both rear wheels. Now here's Johnston again. This is a rear shaft PTO he invented for tractors. And tractors today still have a rear shaft PTO. So this is 1918. But today our trucks use a PTO. I was making a presentation a couple of weeks ago, and the people from our European partners, and they asked me what a PTO was, and I explained power takeoff. But they're in their big trucks today too. So we invented that technology. Now these trucks, the next round of trucks, got a little less buggy-like. They still had wooden wheels, solid rubber tires. They were styled after a Renault automobile with that sloped hood. We didn't have designers. We didn't have industrial designers. So our engineers were designing, and sometimes they were borrowing. And we admit in our literature, in our product literature, that this style is based on the Renault automobile. So I don't know how you do that today. Sorry.
But the rad's at the back of the cowl instead of in front.
Yeah, here. But we also invented the H gear shift pattern. That's an international thing. We, patented that.
Yeah, 1915, the H shift pattern, which is commonplace today, was patented by International, 1915. And I have a Model H that has that first version of a 1, 2, 3 reverse transmission. Yeah, pretty cool.
And then here's how that engine sits in there. Because of that sloped hood, it sits backwards. The fan is at the back, at the firewall.
At the cowl, yeah.
At the cowl, yeah. Okay. And it's just more of those trucks. That thing in the lower right is another homemade fifth wheel before there was, before Fruhoff invented the fifth wheel. Well, he invented it in 1914, and that's 1915. Here's somebody who's made a train or a locomotive out of one of our trucks, which is kind of bizarre. Here's another homemade fifth wheel with a low boy. See, I got great photos. If I don't have great stories, I have great photos. So we noticed with this line of trucks that coach builders were buying our trucks and converting them to buses. We decided we should be in that business, and we got in the business in 1915. And it's one of our most successful businesses we have today. We're the industry leader in school buses. And that school bus, although that's an illustration painted yellow, it wasn't until the 1930s that yellow became the school bus color. Look at the catalog, the first catalog for buses. What do they call us? We're motor trucks with special bodies for bus and transfer service. I mean, they couldn't even spit out the word bus. That's some of our buses up to today. Well, you want to see that?
Yeah, I liked it.
You liked it? I'll go back here. I mean, it's that S series in 1922, all wooden. You get on, from the rear, and the seats are center facing, not forward facing.
Excuse me.
Yes.
It's got the little rascals in that.
I think it is. I think it is. It's we've made some very stylish buses. My favorite is that Schoolmaster, which is a Lodestar. It's just highly styled, I think. That's Ted Ornis, the guy who did the Scout, did that one.
The L series and a Lodestar.
Huh? Yep. Some cool looking buses. The next series, the 3 Series, just got bigger and more powerful, George?
You bet. Yep.
Yeah.
More axles, heavier wheels, heavier frames. In some cases, more gears.
And some cases, pneumatic tires, it looks like, right?
Yeah, pneumatic tires came about, I don't know, late teens or 20th vision, somewhere in.
But it looks like slow to, everybody didn't go to them immediately.
There, it's not on, that's why you're not getting.
Oh, get it.
When did they go away from the wooden wheels?
I think in the 20s.
About 24, 25.
Yeah. Look at the one in the upper right there. Those are still wooden wheels, I think.
Yeah.
Solid tires.
Like I've got a 1920, well, 2 or so, 23 Model S with the original wooden wheels on them. All they did was clean them up and paint them. So it's, you know, some of that stuff lasted pretty well. Had a little grain box on it.
This is one of my favorite photos that I think I got from George and
You did?
not from the archives. You know, when our Fort Wayne plant opened, this is what we were building.
Yeah, that was an early drive away. They were all going to one branch house, I think, on the east.
The 54 series or the 4 series, just, we didn't do any one, you know, we were doing light, medium, and heavy and severe when we introduced a new line of trucks. We don't do light today, but
Yeah, this is getting pretty serious here. I mean, you look at the cast wheel hubs. These things were hauling lots of weight, lots of gravel work, heavy work, off-road work, but still using somewhat primitive power. The engine out of the 1020 tractor engine, which has got the 2 big portholes in the side, is what was powering most of those trucks you see in the picture there, and they just didn't have enough power until they went to the Hull Scots.
yeah. I'm sorry if you haven't been hearing me. I'll try to speak up, and now the microphone's working? Yes? I might have to hold it. Okay. How do I get it? Sorry. Maybe this is better. August Fruhoff invented the semi, the 5th wheel, in 1914. And George and I know Ruthie Fruhoff, his granddaughter, and I tried to create a little graphic there in the upper right to explain why it's a semi-trailer. He took a Model T and a trailer, a 4-wheel trailer, removed the front 2 wheels, and it became a semi-trailer. We did, you know, it was 10 years before we started to build trucks with a 5th wheel. And those are some of the earliest there at the bottom. Model 94 in Argentina. I mean, we really were a global enterprise. I did a presentation a few years ago. I called Truly International, and I just went from country to country to country, showing what we were doing, what we were selling, you know, way back when.
And they were all manufactured one spot and shipped there.
At a certain point, we started building plants or having plants. After the 1902 merger, we decided that we couldn't pay the tariffs. We were shipping trucks in crates overseas, and then they were getting reassembled. And it turned out the tariffs were too much, so we decided to build or buy plants and truly manufacture, not just assemble overseas. And we had plants, an early plant in Sweden. We had a plant in Russia in 1911. We sold, Russia was our second largest market after the United States. We had, I don't know, 70 dealers across Russia. And then when World War I started, the Bolsheviks threw us out and we lost our plant. Everybody had to come home. But this W series was an upgrade from the previous series. I love the old photos and/or illustrations here. I've been trying to figure this out for a long time, but we were putting cylinder sleeves in our tractors in 1906, and I couldn't figure out why or how we got the sleeves in our trucks, not until 1924, and I don't know why, but it was an engineer at our Fort Wayne plant that decided we should start, you know, putting sleeves in our trucks, and we were the first to do so. And you know, you guys know more about this than I do, but you can rebuild a truck or a truck engine without pulling it from the truck. So it was a big advantage. As part of that merger in 1902, we got this plant. That Warder, Bushnell, and Glessner was part of the merger. They boasted that their reaper plant was the largest in the world, and it may have been. And when I look at this in other early illustrations, it looks to me like the more smokestacks you had, the cooler you were. It looks like a status symbol to me. I could be wrong. I could be reading that wrong. But this is why we have a plant in Springfield, Ohio today. Not on the same plot of land, but this is what it looked like in 1921. We switched when, it was making reapers and binders back when we merged, but it switched over to trucks in 1921. In 1966, we opened a new plant in Springfield, and they're having the Scout Show there next week. I know the guy who runs that plant. It's an incredible operation. We build for General Motors there too. We build trucks for General Motors there. This is just an outline. My wife here, Patty, helped me make this a few years ago, this list, but I could do that for every decade, but look how many different models we offered. It's just crazy. A guy who runs our research and design operation asked me about 3 years ago to send him a photo of every model we ever made in every variant. Well,
Hello.
I mean, a few of our models had 1,000 variants, so I sent him hundreds of photos, but I couldn't come close to what he was looking for. And part of the reason I made this is to show him that, I probably can't get you a photo of everything you want. This S series, we were so proud of it. S stood for speed. So we were boasting about the speed of our trucks, and 25 miles an hour was a big deal apparently back then. So these trucks were advanced. They, I think still had wooden cabs, but they were enclosed. We had pneumatic tires, and I think on this series, if you were to pull up to a gas station to fill it, you would open the passenger door, and where your glove box would be today is where you put the gasoline in. So, probably not.
The Model S also had a standard equipment, was a PTO-driven air compressor, because all the nails and screws on the ground, you needed to be fixing some tires every now and again. So with the advent of pneumatic tires on them, and I've got a little grain truck like that.
Yep.
That's got a pretty cute little piece.
Yep, and the Red Baby, which was the smallest of the S series, was every dealer in North America was required to have at least one, and they were used as service trucks or delivery, to deliver new products. But really, I think the most important thing they did was keep the dealers in contact with their customers. They would, they weren't, emails weren't going out to remind, the customers of what was new. They probably didn't mail them that much, so they would go out and see their customers. It was a brilliant idea. Some dealers had 5 or 6 of those.
And there wasn't any black on that truck. I mean, the little Red Baby was red top to bottom.
And that Speed Series truck sold in Japan. I mean, I could do 3 or 4 slides of just our trucks in Japan in the 1920s. Just other speed trucks. They went from small to medium to large, and there was always an automobile version. Some wild bodies on some of these. I love the fire truck in the lower left. Just an elaborate machine. And the 6-speed special. This came later in the S series. It had a 2-speed rear axle, which in combination with a 3-speed transmission gave you 6 gears. So 3 lower gears for the truck in the farm field and 3 higher gears for the road. This thinking, led to an 18-speed transmission with high and low of each gear. It wasn't our invention, but our thinking.
This was a game changer in my mind. This is, you're separating the wheat from the chaff. You could get a lot more done, you could start a bigger grade, you could haul a bigger load, and all you did was put an extra couple of gears in the back end in front of the or in front of the rear axle, on the front part of the rear axle. And a lever would come up underneath the seat, and you'd just shift it back and forth if you wanted to change your ranges. It really made a huge difference in the industry, in my mind.
So I made a presentation 10 years ago when I worked in our industrial design department. I'd have a day job doing graphic design and then at night doing the history work. And I made a presentation and my boss told me when he saw the presentation that I was overselling the idea that we changed the industry, we changed the country, and we changed the world. And we did. I mean, I didn't argue with him, but I didn't change my story either. We changed the world. I mean, here's the S-Series being built in Chatham, another one of our plants. And this is George's favorite, maybe. Is that me?
No.
Good. The Hall-Scott engines. Our trucks needed more power, so we started to buy Hall-Scott engines, and look at the size of some of those trucks.
And these things had power. They actually were a real live engine compared to the old 1020 tractor engine that had the 2 portholes that you'd work on the crankshaft off the side. These Hall-Scotts are, they come in 2 different sizes, and which I've got one of each in my Boulder Dam truck, plus I've got a 54C, or 54 HS. And any of those other trucks, you could stop the truck with the brakes, with a pedal brake. A Hall-Scott, you would not stop it with the pedal brake. I don't know what the hell you'd have to do, but the thing had enough power to. That was a game changer again. And those were built in California. The Hall-Scotts were built in California.
And they were used to build the Hoover Dam. We supplied 80% of the trucks to build the Hoover Dam. So our trucks ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 3 years in 100-degree heat, and really proved to the world how dependable, reliable, durable our trucks were. We really enhanced our reputation a great deal building the Hoover Dam.
They're backing up without gears.
Yeah, standing up, driving backwards.
Well, he's steering with his foot.
Yeah, I mean.
And then the side drop is 1,000 foot.
Yeah, right, it's on a cliff.
So the red truck at the top is my 29 HS 104C, and it's
probably
cool.
the only surviving Hoover Dam truck.
Yeah, that we know of for sure, other than a Mack that Ron did as well too. But.
And then on the right, they dug tunnels on either side of the river to move the water out of the way to build the dam. And to build those tunnels, this is an International truck here on the right with a 3-story rig on it that would back up into the tunnel. Guys would be, I don't know how many, 4 or 5 guys on each level with drills. And they drill a hole in 6 feet into the granite or whatever it was, stuff it with dynamite, pull out of there and light the fuses and just.
If you ever see a moving picture of the Boulder Dam construction, it's an international movie, an international corporate movie. Nobody else did one. They had pictures. Other people had pictures. International was the only one that made a movie of it.
Yeah, it's incredible. So I like to tell this story about our severe duty trucks. Some of our earliest trucks helped build a small part of the New York subway system. We built the Hoover Dam, and during World War II, we built part of the Alaskan Highway. So we've been there. We've had severe duty trucks in action forever, it seems. This is a story about one of our still today big suppliers, Hendrickson. They invented their walking beam tandem axle technology in 1934 and gave us a 14-year exclusive with it. You know, at the corporate office, I have to explain maybe tandem axles, but I think you guys understand. It kept, you know, some power wheels on the ground. It was a big deal. And we still work with Hendrickson every day. The A-Series, I think, awfully stylish trucks. George, is that yours? And
Yes.
the upper right?
Yep, my little orange one will come out of Louisville, Kentucky.
I like the guy in the photo in the lower left. Either that's a really big truck or that's a really small man. We did that on the CXT. I don't know if you guys know the CXT. I'll show it later. But we were trying to sell a truck to impress everybody of how big it was. So I was working at the ad agency at the time, and we get a book of male models that we're going to hire. We're going to hire one that we flipped through it. We picked the smallest male model we could find and put him with this truck, and the truck looked nearly twice as big as it was. We had a long running series of diamond engines: green diamond, black diamond, silver diamond, blue diamond,
Red diamond.
and it all came out of this deal. Willys, during the Great Depression, Willys was building this Model 99 automobile, and they could not sell it. Nobody was buying automobiles. We made a deal with them, asking them to build a truck on that chassis with their engine, and it became our Model D1. Eventually, if I'm right, George, we made a deal to buy out that whole operation, including their engine, and that became the first of our diamond engine series. It went on, I don't know, when did we make the last diamond engine? In the 50s or 60s?
No, 60s.
60s? Yeah. So, yeah, it was long.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, it was 70s because of red diamonds, yes, you're right. Yeah, would have been in the 70s for sure. RD 450s,
Yeah,
501s.
Yep, there it is. I answered my own question, my own slide.
Yep, we're supposed to be speeding up a bit.
And I learned recently in Australia there was a gold diamond engine we built. Now maybe it was really silver diamond that they named. I don't know. The B series trucks, fewer options to control costs. We've done that from time to time. We also usually go in the other direction and just offer more and more options. Not today, but we got into trouble after the war. The C series, beautiful trucks, Art Deco inspired, but when I was working in industrial design, somebody said, "Tom, have you ever looked at the Chevrolet from 1933? And I hadn't, and we pretty much knocked off the front grille there from Chevrolet. So we'd eventually get our own designers, but they were beautiful trucks. We started to build these cab forward trucks in the 20s and 30s for, keep the truck short and make it easy to maneuver in the alleys in the cities. More of the same. We built buses. Every time we built a new truck model, we built a new bus model. So, and here, Chris, welcome. I saw you come in. My boss is here in back. Chris led the whole rebranding program that we went through to become international again. This is one of his favorite stories, and mine too. In 1935, we hired Raymond Loewy, the world's most famous industrial designer, maybe the world's first industrial designer. He had offices in New York and Paris. He came in, he had assignments. He was to restyle our very famous, very successful Farmall tractor. He created that red color. Before that, our tractors were gray. A very nondescript gray. He created that man on the tractor logo, the IH logo. He couldn't stand the old logo we were using. He was on the train going back to his New York office and did a little sketch that became that logo that was known around the world maybe as much as the Coca-Cola logo. But he also designed this D series of trucks, those trucks in the upper right there. When we did I don't know how many of you know the Lone Star, our very coolest truck of all. We hired Carnegie Mellon University to go back and look at all the trucks we'd made to that point and figure out what was the truest international of all our trucks, which was the essence of an international truck. And they determined that it was this D series. So when they built the Lone Star, they used the D series here for inspiration. They were just very, very cool trucks and popular, I believe.
And no wood in the cab.
No wood?
The Ds had no wood in the cab, where the Cs had wood before that.
And that's George's truck, I think, in the upper right there.
Yeah, my D15.
Yep. And I just found this ad that we were doing things like heat and defrosting systems back in the 30s. I thought that was pretty cool. And then this in 2016, an artist contacted me. He was working on this series of stamps for the U.S. Postal Service, and they wanted to feature one of our trucks, pickups. It was a series of 4 pickup trucks. I think one from Ford, one from Chevrolet.
And International.
Yeah, so, and they didn't even ask for photos of the truck. They wanted a paint chip. They wanted to get the red right on the postage stamp. Well, I could not figure that out. So, like I do very often, I called George. I said, George, how are we going to do this? The guy, he doesn't want a faded. George has all the old swatches from every era, but they're all yellowed, right? Time yellows all the paper, and it isn't a true color anymore. George had a formula for that red. He sprayed it out on a piece of sheet metal. I mean, we weren't going to give the guy a little scrap of paper, so sprayed it out, shipped it to me, I shipped it to the artist, and 6 months later, we saw the stamps.
It's dangerous who people put their trust in. That's all I say. And I was shaking my head through that whole process. I'm working for the U.S. Post Office. Tommy, what are you getting me into? Again, something else above my pay grade.
The job is always interesting. Always interesting.
Oh, that's funny.
More D series. Just some very cool photos and illustrations. That people in the upper left, that's a custom body. It's the egg business. They wanted their truck to look like an egg. Just goofy stuff. And just great illustrations for advertising. More of the D series. I love that one in the upper right. The interior designer looked like he designed the truck himself. The Metro, Lowy also designed the Metro, the first, multi-stop truck. It evolved into something else that Lowy didn't do, the one in the upper right. And recently we found, I think in our cold storage, hundreds of photos of Metros that nobody had ever seen before. I had my son scan 50 of them or so, but we had no photo of this plant in Bridgeport where the Metros were made, but now we do. Now, I changed this, George, last night. George reviewed everything. These are Raymond Loewy's ideas of what would follow the D series, the K series. That's clay on top of a real truck, I think.
Yeah, so these are 1939
Yep.
test mules.
And for the K series, I had been explaining that it was his revision of the D series. Well, it's actually ideas for the next line of trucks. They were rejected. So even the world's most famous designer gets rejected. His ideas get rejected sometimes. We got into diesel engines in 1933. We'd been working on the idea since 1916. I think in the late 20s, we sent engineers to Germany to figure out what a diesel engine was. They came back and built a pretty interesting one. Also, in 38, our dealers on the West Coast were getting requests for more power. They were hauling these doubles and triples over the mountains, and we couldn't supply an engine that would do that. So our dealers got together, extended the hood of this truck, and put a Cummins engine in it. It was a huge hit. It did exactly what the drivers or the trucking companies were looking for. So it became an option at our Fort Wayne plant. You could now have a truck.
And Cummins has been searching for that truck ever since.
Yes, yes.
They were on a mad hunt for it, and
They were looking
who
for
knows
it.
where it's at.
Yep. They were celebrating an anniversary, I don't know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah, 5.
I was working with them on it, and I think I got laid off for one of the 3 or 4 times since in 14 years. Right before that, so I started to work with them, and then I was told, you don't have a job anymore, and I said, sorry guys. And then I think 2 weeks later, I got another. They were all historian jobs. I've worked for every department in the company. I most recently was working for the IT department, because nobody knows what to do, with a historian. I'm now where I belong in corporate communications, but
For a long time, the company didn't give a damn about its history, and it was a shame to see what was going on. So that's what I said. I'd help.
Yeah. Right before the war, we introduced the K series. I think these are very cool looking trucks. Many of them we, turned into military trucks for the war. We, painted them differently. We also built real military designed trucks, but they're just very cool. For the war, like everybody else, we switched almost all of our manufacturing to war machines. We built trucks, tanks, very few of them, lots of half-tracks, crawler tractors. We built torpedoes in Chicago. An amazing 5,000 parts per torpedo. Our torpedoes sank 1/4 of the Japanese fleet. Just machines we made in Chicago. Our trucks, I think this might be our only battlefield truck photo we have, but this is at the Battle of Iwo Jima. Trucks for the Seabees, trucks for the Coast Guard. Both of these here are, commercial trucks, fitted for the military. But, just incredibly strong, durable trucks. We build even highway tractors, for the Red Ball Express.
I wish the company still has one of those.
Yeah, we
With the
do.
trailer,
We
sign
do, in
trailer.
fact. We have, if you've ever been to the Harvester Homecoming in Fort Wayne, we have a collection of, we own 30 or 40 old trucks. We should do better, but that's what we have right now. We built half-tracks at our Springfield plant, more than 13,000 of them. This is a photo of Charles de Gaulle after the Allies retook Paris. He's inspecting the troops, and he's walking by. Those are international, everybody. A few other companies made half-tracks, but that front fender distinguishes ours from the others. Those are our half-tracks. I think it was part of the Lend-Lease Act. I think those were lent to the French, I think. And during the war, obviously, like everybody else, it was the women that were building all the trucks, all the materials for the war. We added, 18,000 employees to our payroll during the war. Opened a number of new plants, expanded others. And this is one of my favorite stories. George helped me figure this out. So as part of the Lend-Lease Act, we sent that truck in the upper left to Russia, who was on our side during the war. They got trucks from every American truck maker. They loved our KR-11. It was just the coolest truck they'd ever seen. We built 33,000 of them. They took our tooling after the war, copied it, and they built that truck in the upper right. They built 750,000 copies of that truck. They liked it so much, they put it on a postage stamp. Later, the Chinese came to the Russians and said, we don't have any industry. Could you help us build something? They said, we'll help you build a truck plant. We've got the tooling for an American truck. So they built the plant in China. They copy our KR-11. They liked it so much they built 1.3 million copies of that truck.
And later, and what was it, 1970?
Yeah, it was a long time.
model run.
Right. In the lower left, they liked it so much they put it on a postage stamp as well. They also put it on their dollar bill, on their fen, on their paper currency. And they built a monument to it at First Auto Works in China. And it's the first motorized vehicle ever built in China. So they were copying International. The W series, I love logging truck photos. And Shelby, I think you're right that the truck on the right is for a matchstick company. Right? And then we built big trucks, gigantic trucks.
And those are Emeryville, California built. Those ones there.
This one,
the Fort Wayne one.
one of 6 built in Fort Wayne for oil field work. But just look at the size of that truck. And this truck, that's the guy at the bottom there is holding a wheel or a tire from a Scout. So, kind of amazing. Then the KB series after the war, people they wanted to be able to buy a truck, but they really wanted chrome. Everything was so austere during the war. They wanted a flashy truck with more power, and the KB series became a huge hit. I still say the K and the KB all refer back to that D series. They're upgraded versions of the D series that Lowy did.
Yeah, the K cab on the K6 and bigger were the same as the D model cab. K1 to 5 was a different cab.
But again, a light, medium, heavy-duty trucks. And just great advertising photography. And finally, in 1948, truck sales surpassed our tractor sales. But the tractor business made every single nut and bolt. They made every single part of a tractor, where we were buying parts like we do today from suppliers. So even though our sales surpassed tractors, the profits were still, the tractors made a lot more money than we did. The L series, just stylish trucks, I think. The L series, the larger trucks and the smaller trucks had a really different look. And the Comfo Vision cab, we were so proud of this product. We sold this cab, and you can see George pointed out some to me on the lot out here yesterday in other brands of trucks. 20 different truck makers bought this cab from us. And we're not sure who designed it, George?
Yeah, I'm still a mystery. There's been the Chicago Cab Company. There's been, did we do it? I'm not absolutely positive who actually did the design of the thing. But it was widely used in the 50s and 60s by International and other manufacturers. We used it up till 73 or 74.
Oh, and this probably isn't of interest to you, but, you know, Cyrus, you know, was the guy that invented financing, and we got serious about it in 1949, and still today help dealers buy trucks, help customers buy trucks. After the war, we started building four-wheel drive trucks because we were doing that during the war, so it became a commercial product. This is one of George's trucks. It's just monstrously
It's
large.
just big.
And I can't explain the gears, but it apparently has, what, 3 different transmissions?
Well, you've got a 5-speed main box with a 2-speed auxiliary bolted together. Then you've got a 3-speed auxiliary behind it that runs a power tower to run one of the winches. And another winch is run by a PTO driven off of the main transmission. It took me a while to figure out how to drive it here. Last summer we had out doing some a photo shoot with it and made a movie, or they made a YouTube video out of it, and it's 42,000 pounds. It's 40 feet long. It's 9 foot wide almost. It's got it had an NHB 600 Cummins in it originally, but it's got a 250 been changed into it. It's with a drop back exhaust, so they sound really throaty. It's just a big freaking cool truck. It's get the hell out of the way.
The R series in the 50s. This is where Ted Ornish came in, I believe. Right?
Yeah, Ted's first job when he went to International was take the L line and make it the R line.
Yep, and he simplified the grill for sure.
Yep.
Ted was the guy who designed, Ted was our first real industrial designer on staff. He was with the company for 30 years, I think. He designed the Scout, the most famous of his work. George interviewed him. Just some very cool trucks, I think.
They talk about model variants. In the mid-50s, we had something like 350 some odd different models, specific different models. 355 or 6 models. How the hell did you keep that straight?
I've got
crazy.
I've got a little bit on that here. It was after the war, we just had so much manufacturing capacity and we had management that was like a sales team. They just said, we want to be able to make any truck for anybody, and we did, and that became a problem. But the R Series, this is George's truck on the left with a Rolls-Royce engine in it. I mean, that's a real unusual truck.
Yeah, in Canada, we used Rolls-Royce diesels from 1959 to 1963, and most of them got pulled out and Cummins power put in them. They were an absolute disaster, absolute pile of junk. I was going to take the engine out of that one, put a little 250 Cummins in it, and then argued with my little Englishman that helps me keep my stuff running. And another buddy of mine was beating me up about, oh, you got to try. So he had 3 days to get it running. Day and a half he had it running. The damn thing runs pretty good, so we let her be.
Yeah, and that was assembled at the Hamilton plant in Canada,
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah.
Where they mostly
Where the
made,
construction equipment
Yeah,
was, in the
right.
back section of the Hamilton plant where they did their pay haulers and whatever.
Yep. And then there's the Travelall. The station wagon of every model we ever made after 53, I think. Some really cool styling.
Yep.
I think that's our truck in the upper right,
Yes, yep.
right there. Although that metallic paint isn't accurate to the time. But the V series for our V8 engines. And we were going to That's
Yeah, we're going to change that photo.
that's another photo of George's truck there in the upper right.
Yeah, the tow truck there.
Oops, sorry.
That's right, yep.
Yeah.
549 power.
The A series. Love these old illustrations. They're the A series, A for anniversary.
Yeah, that's my little AE100 there. Ted Owners, he wanted to do something special for 50 years of building trucks. And one of the stories he told me was the paint manufacturer that International used didn't do metallic paint, but he was also on the board of directors. And he says, no, I wanted metallic paint. I says, well, how the hell did you survive that one? And he got his metallic paint, and the guy was still on the board of directors, and I'm not sure if they changed companies somewhere along the way or whatever, but it all worked out, and that was a real stylish truck. We'd take a regular standard box and put some tin fenders on the outside of it and cover the tailgate and just change the whole appearance of the thing.
Very cool truck.
Pretty cool, yep.
And, you know, we were always listening to our customers. When we made the Farmall tractor, we listened to our customers, and we built exactly what it was they were looking for. Well, here, we built the world's first crew cab. You know, we took a truck, we added a door. So it started out as a 3-door truck and became a 4-door truck. And, I mean, how many crew cabs are out in the lot here today? I mean, that was all our thinking.
Yeah, 1957, the first 3-door, 1961, the first 4-door, and traveled all the same way. It was until 1973 that Chevrolet came out with a 4-door Suburban. Like, who was leading the pack here?
Yeah, right. Just cool styling, I think. B series, that's Shelby's truck there.
Yeah, the little blue and white one.
But she was how old?
15.
Shelby built that truck.
She learned some stuff, and I learned some stuff. It was an educational experience for both of us.
Pretty cool. And even after the war, we still built trucks for the military all the time. Not giant contracts like we once had. The CO series, cab over series. Beautiful illustrations. Photos. And here, I show this. You folks here are probably close to my age, some a little younger, some a little older. But that photo on the left, you probably shrug your shoulders. Yeah, those are guys designing trucks. Well, you know, most of the people I work with, you know, they've all used computers since, you know, they were in high school or junior high. So it was an amazing operation to have to do drawings like that to create trucks. And we still today build clay models. When we changed head designers a few years ago, maybe 8 years ago, then the incoming guy, or the guy leaving, was deciding we'd all just go to digital, because we have screens this size and 4 or 6 times this long, where they can take a truck, a drawing of a truck, and rotate it and turn the outer shell off, and you can see all the plumbing, all the wiring. You know, you can do an awful lot digitally, but our new designer came in and said, no, we're not going all digital. We're still going to build clay models, and we do today.
That hood there was a 4300
Yeah.
hood there, so that would have been 1970 or so, a couple of years before production.
And again, we built trucks all over the world. This is in Turkey. And the VCO, so these are V8 engines in that CO truck. This I just put in for status. You know, we worked with NASA an awful lot. We worked on products that went to the moon. We worked on the International Space Station. We worked on the first Mars rover. But here's a truck of ours. working for NASA. And when I was in industrial design, I was there for 3 years, our designers pointed out to me that they thought the Lodestar was Ted Ornis's best work. I mean, he was known for the Scout, but like that truck in the upper right, is that yours, George?
Upper left.
Upper left, yeah. They're just, the styling is just, you know, classic, I think.
And I have drawings of the hood design, that style of hood design back in the early 50s. So he had had it tucked away in his head for a long time before it actually went into production.
And the trucks were sold everywhere here in Mexico. And the Fleet Star, I mean, the styling is not that different than the Lodestar, but cool. The Cargo Star, had a Lodestar before. Here we're building, you know, a truck for a rocket launcher. We almost got into the van business. We had a working prototype, but decided not to go into production.
They played with the van business from about 1959 to 73, 74, and never ever did produce a van. And it was one of those things that I asked Ted, what the hell were you doing? Like, why did you spend this much time and money, you know, almost 15 years playing around with a van, and you never built one? And, you know, there was a story, but anyways.
And this is one of my favorite trucks. Very short-lived, and George can explain it best, I'm sure, but difficult to drive.
Yeah, well, it was four-wheel drive basically, and once the front end locked up, there was no clutch system to it. It would hook in and right now, and that truck, if it was in one side of the ditch, it would go to the other side of the ditch pretty fast.
It was, so when the back wheel started to slip on an icy road, the front
end
wheel
would click in.
And it sounds scary to me.
It was a little dramatic.
The Paystar, one of our best-selling trucks of all time. I met a couple summers ago a guy who sold more of them than anybody. A 12-inch frame rail just made it, you know, stronger than anybody else's. We sold them, the guy I worked with sold them to people working in the oil fields. They were very popular. And then we offered an aluminum cab. So in an oil field, you know, where they're afraid about fires all the time, an aluminum cab wouldn't conduct a spark or electricity like a steel cab would. So they were big sellers. And we were always experimenting, always looking for something new. This truck had a lot of new ideas. I mean, it was a radical idea then, but the side mirrors aren't symmetrical. They found it worked better for the driver to sit like that.
And that truck is in the Natmus Museum in Auburn, Indiana today.
Yeah, and then this, in Canada, we bought this company, right, George?
Yeah, Pacific Truck and Foundry and Trailer in fall of 1971 through to 1981. And then it was sold to Inchcape and Crane Carrier and a few, and it's now back in, they bought a company that does suspension work in Vancouver, bought all the intelligence and whatever back, and they were a great help when they did my orange and white one up front there on the top left side. But these other ones here were into, I'm not sure it was China, Philippines, I think, and they were moving power generators.
South Africa.
South Africa, okay.
Yeah, but look at the size of those trucks. I mean, you climb up almost 2, maybe 3 stories to get into the
Six-wheel
cab.
drives and just a whole bunch of stuff moving on there.
And the TransStars, just classic cab over trucks. Sold those for a long time. There are a number of them out on the lot here if you get a chance. The Emeryville on the left is ours. I was explaining in my first presentation as a historian to management before a big truck show. I was explaining how we were the leader in cab over truck sales in the 60s, and pointed to this model, the Emeryville model, and they said, "Go get one, Tom." Go. Well, you know, I was new to the whole business. A lot of people, especially back then, didn't do email. I wrote a letter and printed like 30 copies, stuffed envelopes. I think I got an ATHS list, mailed them to a bunch of collectors, and then the phone started to ring. And then we sent a guy who knew something about trucks out to Ohio, and he bought the truck and came back, and we put 30 grand into it or something. But it's a beautiful truck. It's my truck, I say.
So the Emeryville, California plant is still an existing operating building for Pixar Studios.
Yep. Yep. And the TranStar Conventional, I guess we like the name so much. You know, we built another truck with that name. And then these are the rare trucks, these ones with the short
Conoco.
front. Conoco, yep. Just a little bit on Australia. We built trucks in Australia. We built tractors there. We built construction equipment there. And they had their own design department there. So these trucks are unique to Australia. We built first for the military, that truck there in the upper right, an ACO truck, and then it became a commercial truck, a huge success, and really unique styling. I mean, they would also take American trucks like that one in the upper right there and put their own grill on it. And I think those grills are terribly ugly, but they were proud of them. We also sold sheet metal to Chrysler, I think, in Australia.
Yeah. And Chrysler did some casting of engine blocks and whatever for us in Australia as well, too.
And just dealership in Australia, quite a few of them. We made so much product in Australia, they exported to 80 countries from Australia. So it was a huge operation for us. We built these big off-road trucks. Where are these ones built in Emeryville? No.
Well, the pay hauler, the top right was, they built some of those in Hamilton.
Oh, yeah, right,
In the egg plant. And I think the others were built in Melrose Park, were they not?
Okay, that would make sense.
I'm not positive.
Just, you know, I'm sure all you guys know this, but, you know, in the 60s and 70s, the pickup truck went from being a work truck to a family car and became very popular, and we built all kinds of different pickup trucks. In the Navistar era, or now, we don't make a light truck anymore. There's Ted Ornis, the guy we've been talking about in the upper right, and some of the Scout stuff he did.
I got to interview him for 3 hours one day. It was amazing 3 hours of my life, I'll tell you. It was, the guy had memory like an elephant, could remember dates, remember people's names. I had a bunch of photos of prototypes. I says, why didn't you do this one? And why did you do this? And what, you know, the sightliner. Why did you put the windows in the front? Well, I needed some new fins to sell. Well, what was the purpose of them? I needed fins to sell. There was no purpose.
Yeah, we've got photos of that coming up here. But just his drawing, his first, when he was really stumped for a long time, that's a drawing he made famous now, the kitchen table sketch, and then the patent drawings. And we almost built that truck on the left, the next version of the Scout. It was built with a material like Kevlar. It wasn't steel. That guy in the right-hand photo on the far left, Windecker, it was his formulation. He'd worked for Dow Chemical. Turned out to be too expensive, and the company was going through all kinds of troubles at the time. Yeah. So we never built that version of the Scout. I did an engine story. I'm going to talk about it tomorrow. But people explained to me, probably George, you know, we were looking for a 4-cylinder engine for the first Scout. and just couldn't find the right engine. So somebody took one of our V8 engines and turned it into a 4-cylinder engine, and apparently it worked. This is the new Scout. You know, when Volkswagen acquired us, I think they were really interested in the fact that we'd kept ownership of that name, the Scout. And so now Volkswagen, not under the Volkswagen name, just the Scout name, is going to build new trucks, electric trucks. And in South Carolina, they're building a $2 billion plant there. The first trucks will be out in 2027. That's Scott Keogh on the lower left. He was the CEO of Volkswagen America, and now he's CEO of Scout. I met him a couple years ago. He is the most determined guy I think I've ever met. He will make this happen.
Using the old Scout logo from the original Scouts.
Yep.
And a whole bunch of other small styling cues from the original Scouts and the second generation Scouts are going to show up in those trucks too. It's kind of the Europeans understand history, and they're trying to place some history back in the new product. So it's cool.
And king of the cab over trucks, I say. We were it. Here's the Sightliner we were talking about, the Ted Ornish design, with the windshields down near your knees. George explained to me yesterday, fins. I didn't understand what he was talking about, but fins were selling cars at the time, and you had a newer fin, a bigger fin. Remember the Buicks had some of those crazy big fins? Well,
Cadillac,
yeah. So, but Ted said he needed fins. He needed some gimmick, I guess. So windshields down near your knees. Well, all the drivers with the oncoming headlights, they just put cardboard in there to block those. It wasn't very
Dangerous as
functional.
hell.
And you know, the cab overs, right? The smaller the cab, the longer the trailer. We had a 4-foot front to back truck, and we own one of those. And I can't get in it. I mean, you must weigh 125 pounds or something to drive that truck. And the steering wheel is, you know, about this big, but I don't know, a noteworthy truck. And then the DT466, I'll talk more about that tomorrow, but our most incredible engine. We used it in tractors and construction equipment first, and then put it into trucks. Nobody says anything bad, it seems, about the DT466. Customers would go into an international dealership and they'd say, "Show me that DT466 truck." So they didn't say, "I want to see a Lodestar or a Cargo Star." They were just calling out the truck by the engine. It was famous, known as the legend. But, just a short note here, but by 1970, we'd built about 5 million tractors and about 5 million trucks. And this I find really interesting. In our 1977 annual report was this illustration on the left, the guys in the pink nylon jumpsuits designing our newest engines. But in those bays, back where you see that rocket-like truck pulling out, the heading above it is electric. So in 1977, we were envisioning a future with electric engines. And this is where we got in trouble. We had too many options. You know, it was crazy. That ad on the left, here's 5 of 1,000 different trucks we can sell you. Some of the models had 27 different engines available. Here's when we finally figured it out. This is a company illustration. 863 models by wheelbase, you know. It took us forever to simplify. Today, I think you get 2 choices of engines, maybe. We experimented like everybody else did with gas turbine engines, and it didn't work. The fuel just was too expensive. I don't know how many of you know the binder name for any international truck, but it came from a corn binder. And we fought that name for so long, is like slang, and then finally we gave in and put it on one of our trucks. But S-Series was very big seller. Fred Krisman in his book says he thinks when we were going through so much financial trouble, it was this S series that kept us afloat. It just, no matter how bad things were with the company, this S series just sold and sold and sold.
I mean, it was a great truck. I loved them.
Yeah. This guy, an outsider, came in, designed this premium conventional for us. He designed a Mustang, or two Corvettes and a Mustang. He was a brilliant designer. Here's where things got bad. We were leader in sales and the lowest in profit margin. We finally had to downsize from 125,000 employees down to 15,000. George thinks maybe even lower. We sold off all kinds of plants around the world. This is a little overview of the Harvester era. Kind of amazing if you go from the upper left to the lower right. The Harvester era, we sold off the farm business. We closed the Fort Wayne plant. We ended the Scout production. Sold off the construction equipment business. It was desperate times, and it eventually worked. But we sold our tractor business to Case. There's still a Case IH name. They kept the red, and that's the only tractor I've ever driven. It was quite a tractor.
It actually been sold again, too.
Yeah.
We sold it to New Holland.
Oh, okay. This is what second most important engine we ever invented. We did it with Caterpillar. Hydraulically actuated electronic unit injection fuel system. Just was incredible. It changed what, George, you tell the story about the pen?
Well, yeah, you could take a pen. The engineer told me it was going through the plant. He could get an injector to move 1,000 times.
During that
Pen drop. So it was a revolutionary change in how engines were set to run.
We sold a lot of engines to Ford over the years. Here, I think I got a better statement here. This is from our former company president. We built 185,000 engines for Ford every year for 27 years. So we built them 5 million engines. They evolved over time, but this again kept us afloat in desperate times. These were our first work in aerodynamics, these models. The guy we hired from the aerospace world came in to help us with this. We experimented with fender skirts. People took our styling and put it on this dragster. I've heard this thing with a Detroit diesel light up at Harvester Homecoming. It shakes the earth. I mean, black smoke goes. I'm not a fan of black smoke, like many of you probably are, but it's an amazing machine. I think I've got the wrong wild thing here, but we worked on trucks with Cummins that raced. This one, I think, raced up Pikes Peak.
Yep.
We bought a bus builder business and began to build complete buses. We'd forever built the chassis like there on the right, and then somebody else, a bodybuilder, would build the rest of the bus. And we've been building now buses in this plant that's a mile long. We're the first to build a complete conventional bus in one building. Before that building built bombers. It's an amazing plant. This is our Melrose Park plant. It was built like the one in Tulsa by the government during World War II. It was built to build engines, airplane engines. It was run by Buick. We bought it. We recently bought this test track because our one in Fort Wayne closed. This series, beautiful trucks. I was in industrial design when Walmart came in, and we listened to all kinds of customers. Well, Walmart came in and they said they were spending $1 billion a year in fuel. And if we could build them a truck that was even slightly more aerodynamic and fuel efficient, they were going to be a customer. And we quit making, at that point, we quit making these flat-faced trucks, which, you know, a lot of old guys like us like. I mean, they're just stylishly cool trucks, but we stopped. These are our NGV series of trucks. Many of them still on the road today. Very stylish, I think. This is some workups to that. That's Dave Beigel, one of the designers. And we do this more often than you would think. We consulted with BMW. They did some concepts for us for that truck. And then the two coolest trucks ever made anywhere. The Lone Star. On the right is the Harley Davidson version. We lost money every time we sold one of those because we had to pay Harley so much, but just very, very cool trucks. This is our plant in Escobedo. Very, very productive. Often wins the best record reports with our engine plants or truck plants. We were in this defense business. We built all kinds of trucks. We armored some of our regular commercial trucks. We built a dozen trucks. This is the big one, the MRAP. It has a hull design that we could never photograph, though that protects against improvised explosives. And it's said to have saved 10,000 lives to date. It's a big deal. We sold this business recently, or most of it.
Yeah, I think we own 16% still.
Yeah, something like that, or 18, yep.
Something.
Here's the XT series, kind of a goofy thing, almost a novelty product. The MXT came from the military side. That's the photo I was talking about on the left, that model. I was at the ad agency when we did that photo, and he was the smallest male model we could find there. So that's how big that truck is. It's maybe not as big as it looks. This, my favorite photo we have on the left here. We helped rebuild the Panama Canal. So like we built the Hoover Dam, we rebuilt the Panama Canal. Just great photo. I bought that photo from an Italian fashion designer. And why an Italian fashion designer was down in the Panama Canal, I don't know, but it was easy. I don't know if we paid $800 or $1,100. $1,100. These are trucks. I should move on here. Huh?
Yeah.
I'm way over. Yeah.
We're gonna get fired.
Okay. Sorry. We worked with Ford for years. Building trucks. We built trucks for them. We built trucks. We built both these trucks, our truck and the Chevy Silverado in Springfield. We build these trucks in Springfield. We've experimented with fuel, compressed natural gas, propane.
Electric.
And now we're doing electric on the bottom there. I'll be real fast here. This is some of our darkest moments when we made a number of bad decisions. I won't go into it, but it was ugly. We worked with CAT. I was in the office. They had a designer there in industrial design, built those beautiful trucks. We had an agreement separately with CAT to build trucks for Australia, and there were so many assumptions made on either side. It really didn't work. The cab over truck we designed and was ready to go into production, but it was tooled and ready to go, but it never went. When we were designing that, we worked with the Porsche design group. We brought in this CEO here, Troy Clark, really turned the company around and get us away from all those mistakes. We experiment all the time with trucks, especially working with the government who funds some of this experimentation. Super Truck 1 and Super Truck 2. We did design work for the Postal Service. These are trucks we build in Australia or in New Zealand today.
New Zealand.
Those are trucks from the Navistar era. This is how we fit into things here at Traton. We're part of this group. This is a new plant we built in San Antonio. Here's the inside. It builds both diesel and electric trucks. Here's that engine plant in Alabama. Here's the most amazing engine transmission thing we've ever done. Lots of help from our partners in Europe. 5% better fuel efficiency than
This thing's a game changer.
just an incredible. Those are our trucks. This is where I usually say, I know a dealer who's been selling trucks for 48 years and says these are the best trucks ever built, and I'm talking about George. He tells me that. And thank you.
Well, that's an hour and 40 minutes. I apologize for letting him run over 40 minutes, but he has a lot to say all the time.
Thank you for sitting through this.